Wabi Sabi by Beth Kempton. Think about this for a moment. We live in a world that wants to upgrade everything. Better phone, better body, better life. Everything needs a newer version. Everything needs to be improved. Everything needs to be perfect. And in the middle of all that endless chasing, we forget one thing: what is here right now, who we are right now, the moment that is happening right now. It is never coming back. Japan's Wabi Sabi philosophy says, stop, look, feel. This moment, this is your life. Beth Kempton has explained this philosophy so beautifully that after reading this book, the way you see life genuinely changes. Welcome to Story Reads, and today we're breaking down Beth Kempton's book, Wabi Sabi, Japanese Wisdom for a Perfectly Imperfect Life. Let's get into it. First, let's understand what Wabi Sabi actually is. This is a concept that resists being perfectly defined, and that resistance is actually part of its beauty. Beth Kempton says Wabi Sabi cannot be contained in a dictionary definition. It is a feeling, a perspective, a way of seeing the world. But broadly speaking, Wabi Sabi celebrates three ideas. The first is imperfection. What is not perfect can still be beautiful. The second is incompleteness. What is unfinished holds its own kind of beauty. The third is impermanence. What changes, what ends, learning to accept that and find peace within it. These three ideas together form a philosophy that stands in direct contrast to everything our modern world tells us. The modern world says, be perfect, be complete, achieve permanent results. Wabi Sabi says, be imperfect, be incomplete, and find beauty in what already is. Now let's understand where this philosophy came from. Wabi Sabi's roots in Japan run very deep. This is not one person's theory. It developed naturally over centuries within Japanese culture. The word wabi originally meant loneliness, a kind of quiet solitude, the peace that comes when you live simply, when you don't have much, when life is stripped down to its most essential form. The word sabi originally carried the sadness of passing time, that melancholy you feel when you watch things grow old, when things change, when things end. Over centuries, these two concepts merged into something new. Wabi Sabi became the aesthetic that finds beauty in aging, that sees depth in simplicity, that recognizes authenticity in imperfection. In Japan, Wabi Sabi shows up everywhere. In their gardens where perfectly manicured lawns are replaced by moss-covered stones, where fallen leaves are not immediately swept away, where asymmetry is deliberately chosen. In their pottery, where the imperfections of a handmade bowl are not considered flaws. They are appreciated because they prove a human hand made it. In their architecture, where old wood is not replaced, its texture is preserved. And most importantly, in their daily life, where drinking a simple cup of tea can become a mindful and profound experience. Beth Kempton has spent significant time in Japan. She didn't just learn this philosophy from books, she lived it, and she has translated it into a modern Western context in a way that makes it genuinely accessible and relevant to all of us. Now, the first big teaching, Beth Kempton says, to understand Wabi Sabi, you first have to accept one thing. Most of us are living inside an illusion. That illusion is this: if everything becomes perfect, then we will finally be happy. Think about how many times you have said some version of this to yourself. When I lose the weight, I'll feel confident. When the house is bigger, I'll feel settled. When the relationship is in a better place, I'll feel at peace. When the career is sorted, I'll actually enjoy my life. This is conditional happiness, and conditional happiness is a trap, because when one condition is met, another one arrives. When that one is met, a third appears. The chain never ends. Wabi Sabi says, drop the conditions. Look at what is here now. Feel what is here now. Live in what is here now. This is not easy. We have been trained in conditional thinking for years, but it is possible. And the shift begins with one simple question. In this moment right now, what is already beautiful? In this moment right now, what is already enough? Let me make this real with a story. There's a woman named Mira. She's a graphic designer. She has always felt like her work isn't quite good enough. In every project, she can find something that falls short. Clients are happy. Her team is happy. But Mira always thinks it could have been better. One day, she looks through her old designs, work she created 5 years ago. At the time, she thought those designs were imperfect. But looking at them today, she feels something unexpected. There was something beautiful there. A rawness, an authenticity, something that maybe perfectly polished designs don't have. For the first time, she realizes, in chasing perfect, she had been missing the beauty that was already there. That is Wabi Sabi's first lesson. Now, the second big teaching, Beth Kempton talks about Kintsugi. Kintsugi is a Japanese art form. When a ceramic piece breaks, it is repaired using gold or silver lacquer. But here's the thing that makes it extraordinary. The cracks are not hidden. They are highlighted. The gold-filled cracks become the story of that piece. The bowl is now more beautiful than it was before it broke. More valuable. Not because it was fixed, because its journey is now visible. Beth Kempton says we are all broken in some way. Heartbreaks have happened. Failures have happened, disappointments have happened, relationships have fractured, plans have fallen apart, and we spend enormous energy trying to hide all of those cracks, presenting a perfect life on social media, not telling people how hard things really are inside, pretending everything is fine. Kintsugi says, stop hiding the cracks. Those cracks are your story. They prove that you broke, and you are still here. They are evidence of your strength, not your weakness. A person who has never broken doesn't have Kintsugi. They don't have the depth, the wisdom, the understanding that only comes through difficulty. Your cracks don't make you ordinary. They make you extraordinary. Now, something important. Beth Kempton explores impermanence in this book with real depth. Impermanence means nothing lasts forever. That sounds sad when you first hear it, but Beth Kempton says it is actually the most liberating truth available to us. In Japan, there is a beloved tradition around cherry blossoms. Every spring they bloom, and they last only 1 or 2 weeks. The entire country celebrates during that brief window. People gather in parks, have picnics, sit under the trees and look up. Why such a celebration for something so fleeting? Because everyone knows it won't last. That impermanence is precisely what makes it precious. Beth Kempton says if cherry blossoms bloomed all year long, nobody would look up. The same principle applies to every part of your life. Your children, as they are right now, will not always be this way. This phase will pass. Your parents, as they are right now, will not always be this way. This friendship, this relationship, this moment, this ordinary Tuesday afternoon, everything is impermanent. And the awareness of impermanence makes you present. When you know a moment won't last forever, you experience it fully. You stop taking it for granted. You actually show up for it. That is a profound shift. Now, a concept Beth Kempton explores beautifully. The beauty of imperfection. We generally see imperfection as a problem. Something to fix, hide, overcome. Wabi Sabi says, appreciate imperfection. A handmade bowl with a slight asymmetry. That asymmetry makes it more valuable than a machine-made bowl because it carries a human touch. An old wooden table with scratches on it. Those scratches are the history of that table. Polishing them away erases that history. A person who isn't perfectly put together, who is sometimes vulnerable, who doesn't hide their struggles, that person is more relatable, more trustworthy, more real. Beth Kempton says perfectionism is actually a form of fear. When we chase perfection, we are really saying something else. I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of failing. I'm not enough as I am. Wabi Sabi releases that fear. It says, you are enough as you are right now. Now, something practically important. Beth Kempton talks about simplicity and its deep connection to Wabi Sabi. We live in a world that constantly wants more stuff, more options, more achievements, more connections, more experiences, and all that more actually overwhelms us, exhausts us. Wabi Sabi says less is more, but this is not the minimalism you see on Instagram. White walls, empty rooms, everything perfectly organized. Wabi Sabi's simplicity is different from that. It is an inner simplicity, a place where you don't need everything in order to feel good, where drinking a simple cup of tea can be a profound experience. In Japan, there is a practice called chado, the tea ceremony. In this ceremony, making and drinking one cup of tea becomes a meditative practice. Every movement is deliberate. Every gesture is mindful. An entire universe lives inside that one cup. That might sound extreme, but the message is simple. Slow down, be present, find depth in simple things. Beth Kempton says we can apply this in daily life. That morning coffee you drink while rushing out the door, what if you drank it slowly one day? Felt the warmth of the cup in your hands? Actually noticed the smell? That walk you take with your headphones in? What if once in a while you left the headphones behind? What is actually around you? The sounds, the light, the textures. They say small shifts are Wabi Sabi in practice. Now something that goes deeper. Beth Kempton says Wabi Sabi and nature have a profound and close relationship. Nature is naturally Wabi Sabi, a falling leaf. Not perfect, not symmetric, but beautiful. A stone smoothed by years of water moving over it. There is a beauty in that worn surface that a brand new polished stone doesn't carry. A sunset that is different every single evening, never perfectly reproducible. And that is exactly why every sunset is special. Beth Kempton says, observing nature is the most direct way to feel Wabi Sabi. When you spend time in nature and actually look at it, a realization arrives. Nature is never perfect, and yet it is beautiful. Nature is never permanent, and yet it is meaningful. Nature is never complete. Always changing, growing, becoming, and you are part of nature. You are not perfect either. You are not permanent. You are not complete. And that is exactly why you are beautiful. Now, something that is one of the most radical ideas in this book, Beth Kempton talks about slowing down. In the modern world, slowing down is genuinely a radical act. We worship speed, faster, more efficient, quick results. Wabi Sabi says slow down. But why? Because when you are slow, you notice things. When you notice things, you appreciate them. When you appreciate things, you become genuinely grateful. And gratitude is the foundation on which real happiness is actually built. Beth Kempton shares an observation about traditional Japanese craftsmen, the ones who make pottery, who weave textiles, who forge swords using centuries-old techniques. They work slowly. A single piece can take weeks, sometimes months, no rush, because they value the process as much as the product. When we work slowly, we stay present in the work, and within that presence there is a satisfaction and a peace that rushed work never produces. We tend to look for happiness in results, Wabi Sabi says find happiness in the process. Now, something very relatable. Beth Kempton talks about relationships through the lens of Wabi Sabi. We bring perfectionism into our relationships too. We want a perfect partner, a perfect friendship, perfect family dynamics. And when reality doesn't match that perfect image, disappointment arrives, resentment arrives. Wabi Sabi says relationships are imperfect, and that is exactly what makes them real. That argument you had with your best friend, that awkward family dinner, that moment when your partner hurt you without meaning to. All of that is the texture of the relationship. Its history, its depth. A relationship with no cracks is probably a relationship where nobody is fully present. Beth Kempton makes an important distinction here. Accepting imperfection in relationships does not mean accepting harmful patterns. It does not mean ignoring your own needs or dropping your boundaries. It means realizing unrealistic expectations and choosing to see the genuine goodness in what is already there. The friend who isn't always on time, but who, when she shows up, is completely present. The partner who isn't romantic in the ways you imagined, but who is consistently there when it matters. The family member who is complicated, but who genuinely loves you. Wabi Sabi teaches you to see that beauty. Now, something that comes from Japanese art. Beth Kempton talks about negative space. In Japanese art, the empty space is just as important as the filled space. In a painting, the areas where nothing exists create meaning. They give breathing room. They allow what is there to be felt more fully. This applies directly to life. We keep our lives very full, every moment scheduled, every day packed. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels unfamiliar. Wabi Sabi says space is necessary. Space for silence. Space for stillness. Space for doing nothing at all. This is not laziness. This is actually the state where the deepest insights arrive, where creativity blooms, where genuine rest happens. Beth Kempton suggests something very simple. Occasionally, do nothing deliberately. Just sit near a window and look outside. That is all. That simple act is a profound Wabi Sabi practice. Now, the concept that ties everything in this first section together. Beth Kempton says Wabi Sabi is ultimately a question. That question is this: what is enough? Our culture constantly tells us that what we have is not enough, that we need more, better, different. Wabi Sabi challenges that narrative directly. It asks, what is already here that is enough? What do you already have that actually matters? And when you sit honestly with that question, you discover something, quite a lot. There is shelter, there is food, there is someone somewhere who cares, there is something that carries meaning, that realization, that enoughness. That is Wabi Sabi. So here is what we've covered in this first section. Wabi Sabi finds beauty in imperfection, incompleteness, and impermanence. Kintsugi teaches us to stop hiding our cracks and let them tell our story. Impermanence makes us present rather than taking things for granted. Perfectionism is actually fear in a different outfit. Simplicity carries genuine depth. Nature is Wabi Sabi in its purest form. Slowing down is a radical and powerful act. Relationships are imperfect, and that is what makes them real. Negative space is not empty time, but necessary breathing room. And the most important question is simply this: what is enough? Now let's go into the deeper layer of everything Beth Kempton explores in this book. In the first part, we covered the foundation, what Wabi Sabi actually is, the Kintsugi philosophy, and embracing your cracks, why impermanence makes us more present, how perfectionism is really fear, the connection between simplicity and depth, nature as Wabi Sabi in its purest form, slowing down as a radical act, imperfect relationships being real relationships, negative space, and the question at the heart of everything: what is enough? Now let's go further. Beth Kempton opens this section with something that lands quietly but very deeply. She says we all carry a story about ourselves, about our lives, about our failures, about our worth. And most of the time, we didn't write that story ourselves. It was handed to us by other people, by society, by culture, by the expectations of everyone around us as we were growing up. And we repeat that story so often and believe it so completely that it becomes our identity. I am not enough. I am too sensitive. I am too slow. I am too ordinary. Wabi Sabi challenges that story directly. Your sensitivity is not your weakness. It is your depth. Your slowness is not your deficiency. It is your thoroughness. Your ordinariness is not a failure. It is your authenticity. Beth Kempton says the deepest Wabi Sabi practice is this: release the story that was never yours and find the story that actually is. This is not easy. The old story is familiar. It has a strange comfort to it even when it hurts. But in releasing it is where the real freedom lives. Now, something about the spaces we inhabit. Beth Kempton explores the connection between Wabi Sabi and our homes, our physical spaces. In Japan, there is a philosophy around how a home should feel. A home should not be a perfect showpiece. A home should feel lived in. The worn sofa that is perfectly comfortable. The wall with a small mark where a child drew on it years ago. The kitchen that always has a little bit of mess because food is actually made there. All of that is Wabi Sabi. Beth Kempton says, we bring perfectionism into our homes the same way we bring it everywhere else. Pinterest, perfect interiors. Instagram-worthy spaces. Every corner styled and curated. But those perfectly styled homes are often missing one thing: soul. The home where a life actually happens, where there are stories in the furniture, where things are worn because they have been used and loved. That home is more alive. Beth Kempton suggests a simple practice. Find one thing in your home that is imperfect, something you have been meaning to fix or replace, and remember its story. That scratch on the dining table. How did it happen? When? What memory lives in it? Suddenly that scratch is no longer a flaw. It is a memory made visible. That is Wabi Sabi at home. Now, something about work that most productivity conversations never touch. Beth Kempton talks about perfect output, how Wabi Sabi changes the way we relate to our work. We bring perfectionism into our professional lives as much as anywhere. Perfect efficiency, perfect results every time, and when we fall short, we judge ourselves harshly. Wabi Sabi sees work differently. In Japan, there is a concept called Shokunin. Shokunin translates roughly as craftsman, but it is much more than a job title. It is a spirit. The Shokunin spirit means being fully present in your work, caring for every detail, valuing the process at least as much as the result. There is a ramen chef in Tokyo who has been making the same broth recipe for over 50 years every single day with the same quiet dedication. Why? Because for him, the ramen is not just food, it is his practice, his meditation, his art. Beth Kempton says this spirit is available to anyone in any kind of work, whether you are a teacher or a designer or a nurse or a parent. Whatever you do, bring full presence to it. Bring genuine care. That is the Shokunin spirit, and it is one of the most practical expressions of Wabi Sabi in everyday life. Now, something our culture actively resists. Beth Kempton talks about aging through the lens of Wabi Sabi. We live in a culture that treats aging as an enemy to be fought. Anti-aging products, procedures, the relentless chase to look and feel forever young. Wabi Sabi offers a completely different perspective. In Japan, aging is respected. An old tree with rough bark covered in moss and twisted from decades of wind is considered more beautiful than a young sapling. Why? Because that old tree has faced storms. witnessed seasons, carried the weight of time. Every twist in its trunk holds a story. Beth Kempton says this is true for us too. The wrinkles, the gray hair, the scars, these are time's gifts, evidence of experience. Every wrinkle holds the memory of a laugh, the trace of a worry, a moment that has passed but left its mark. These are not things to hide. These are things to honor. Now, a Japanese concept Beth Kempton introduces that is quietly one of the most useful ideas in the book. She calls it ma. Ma is a Japanese concept. Its literal translation is gap, pause, interval. But ma is not simply empty space. Ma is the meaningful pause between things. In music, the silence between notes is not absence. It is part of the music. Without it, there is only noise. In conversation, a pause carries meaning. It does not need to be filled. The night between yesterday and today, that night is rest, preparation, transition. Beth Kempton says we try to eliminate ma from our lives. We fill every moment. We break every silence. We try to make every gap productive. But ma is necessary. In ma, we breathe. In ma, things are processed. In ma, the next moment is prepared for. A simple way to apply this: deliberately build small pauses into your day. Between meals, between tasks, between conversations, just a little space. In that space, there is nothing to do, just be. Now, something that connects the personal to the seasonal. Beth Kempton talks about the seasons of life with real tenderness. In Japan, the 4 seasons are deeply appreciated and deeply observed. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. Each season carries its own beauty. Each season has its own purpose. Spring is new beginnings. Summer is fullness. Autumn is letting go. Winter is rest and quiet renewal. And in Japan, these seasons are not just something that happens outside. They are recognized as something that happens inside as well. Beth Kempton says our lives move through seasons too. Seasons of growth, seasons of struggle, seasons of rest, seasons of change. But the problem is we only want summer. We want growth all the time, productivity all the time, fullness all the time. Winter makes us anxious. We resist it. We try to push through it. We treat it as something gone wrong. But winter is not something gone wrong. The rest that winter brings, the stillness, the quiet drawing inward, this is the preparation that makes the next spring possible. If your life is in a winter season right now, a slow period, a quiet time, a period without obvious forward motion, do not fight it. Receive it. This is not failure. This is the ground preparing for what comes next. Now, something about gratitude that takes a different shape here than it usually does. Beth Kempton explores gratitude through the Wabi Sabi lens. Wabi Sabi practice is rooted in gratitude, but not the forced kind, not toxic positivity, genuine appreciation for what already exists. Beth Kempton suggests a specific evening practice. Every night before sleep, bring to mind 3 things from the day that were imperfect, incomplete, or in the process of changing, and find the beauty in each one. A difficult conversation that was uncomfortable, but that made a relationship more honest. A plan that didn't work, but that pointed you toward a direction you hadn't considered. A moment that passed very quickly, but that was genuinely joyful while it lasted. This practice trains you to look at life through the Wabi Sabi lens. Beauty in imperfection, meaning in change, depth in simplicity. Now, something that may be the most personally significant teaching in the entire book, Beth Kempton writes about self-compassion, how Wabi Sabi changes the way we treat ourselves. We are hardest on ourselves, far harder than we will ever be on we loe forth mishkakis we might, for what we didn't accomplish, for the version of ourselves we wanted to become, but haven't yet. Wabi Sabi says treat yourself the way you would treat an old and beloved object, like that worn paperback you have had for years, pages yellowed, spine cracked, covered in pencil underlines and folded corners. Would you throw that book away because it isn't perfect anymore? No. Those imperfections make it precious. They prove it was loved, read, carried, cherished. You are like that book. Your scars, your mistakes, your imperfections, they prove you have lived, tried, cared, been changed by experience. Beth Kempton says self-compassion is not a luxury. It is a necessity. When you are kind to yourself, you have more capacity to be kind to others. When you accept your own imperfections, you become more able to accept the imperfections of the people around you. The ripple moves outward from whatever is at the center. Make the center kind. Now, a practice Beth Kempton introduces that is simple and quietly transformative. She calls it the Wabi Sabi Walk. Once a week, take a walk in your neighborhood, but the purpose of this walk is not exercise. The purpose is to find Wabi Sabi, an old wall with moss growing through the cracks, a tree that doesn't grow straight, a puddle reflecting the sky, a single fallen leaf that no one else has noticed. All of that is Wabi Sabi. This practice gradually retrains your attention, away from looking for what's wrong, away from what needs to be fixed or changed or upgraded, toward finding what is already beautiful. And that shift in attention, that slow reorientation of what you are looking for when you move through the world, it genuinely changes how life feels, not dramatically overnight, but consistently, over time. You begin to find beauty in places you used to walk past without seeing. Now, the direct confrontation between Wabi Sabi and perfectionism. Beth Kempton is clear about this. Perfectionism and Wabi Sabi are opposites in the most fundamental way. Perfectionism says do it right or don't do it at all. Wabi Sabi says do it imperfectly, and that is enough. Perfectionism creates paralysis. You don't start because you don't feel ready, and you never feel ready because ready requires perfect. Wabi Sabi says start. A messy start, an uncertain start, an imperfect start, but start. An artist who wants to paint but doesn't have perfect technique. Perfectionism says learn the technique first, then paint. Wabi Sabi says paint now. The technique develops through the doing. A person who wants to start a new project but is waiting for the right moment. Perfectionism says wait for when the conditions align. Wabi Sabi says this moment is the right moment. This philosophy enables action in a way that perfectionism never can, because it removes the requirement of perfect as the price of entry. You are allowed to begin before you are ready. You are allowed to make something that isn't flawless. You are allowed to show up as you are and let that be enough. Now, the final and deepest teaching that Beth Kempton returns to throughout the entire book, she closes with a question. What would change in your life if you truly believed that you and your life are already enough? If you genuinely believe that, not as a goal to work toward, not as something to feel after more has been achieved, but right now, as a present and lived reality, what would you do differently? Would you start the thing you have been postponing until you feel more ready? Would you be in the conversation you have been avoiding until circumstances are better? Would you actually be present in the moment that is happening right now instead of planning your way toward a better one? Beth Kempton says this question is the heart of Wabi Sabi Enogness. It is not a destination you reach after sufficient achievement. It is a choice available to you right now. I am enough. This life is enough. This moment is enough. And when you genuinely feel that, even briefly, even for a single moment, something shifts. The chase that was always running in the background goes quiet. The low-level anxiety that has been present for so long you forgot it was there loosens its grip, and something else arrives. A quiet, a stillness, a sense of being exactly where you are supposed to be. Wabi Sabi. So here is everything this book comes down to. We carry stories about ourselves that were never ours to carry, and releasing them is where real freedom lives. Our homes deserve to feel lived in, not staged. The Shokunin spirit brings presence and care to any kind of work, regardless of what that work is. Aging is not an enemy, but a record of a life fully experienced. Ma teaches us that the spaces between things are as meaningful as the things themselves. The seasons of our lives, including the difficult and quiet ones, deserve acceptance, not resistance. Wabi Sabi gratitude means finding beauty in what is imperfect and changing rather than only what is going well. Self-compassion is the center from which everything else ripples outward. The Wabi Sabi Walk gradually retrains attention from looking for what's wrong to finding what's beautiful. Perfectionism requires perfect as the price of starting, while Wabi Sabi says, start as you are. And at the foundation of the entire philosophy is one question and one answer. What is enough? You are, right now, as you are. That is Wabi Sabi.